This is the Anime Roundtable Canada, presented by Anime North.
The opinions expressed in the following are those of its participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the producers and the Six Talk Podcast Network. Also, the following contains mature material and mild language, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Discretion is advised.
Well, August was a big fail. So let's start to write things on the very first day of September, and then we'll give ourselves and we'll give ourselves a chance to write the ship, or I'll give it a chance to write everything and try and get in the quota episode. I have a whole month. I'll have a whole month to try and get in the quota episode. August. I'll give the excuses in a bit. Anyway, here we go on this Labor Day weekend, Sunday, September the 1st, 2024. Hey, the gang's all here. All five of us are around the table tonight. Mike Nicolas at 6 points, James Austin, Amy Lynn Greig, Mohamed Sharmarke, Kevin Ng. We're all here. When was the last time all five of us were here? I'm trying to remember now.
Was it North?
You didn't come to North.
I was there.
I know. I was like, oh. Says the person who was an Anime North.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
Mo was with us in spirit.
Yeah, it usually is.
And that's what matters, right?
Yes, it does. Well, it has been a month and a month and a half. We taped our last episode in mid-July, and a lot has happened. And we will not be able to really get through any extensive part of it. Well, nothing significant, I don't think. But there are always things that grabbed our attention in the latter stages of the summer. You know, Labor Day is the unofficial end of summer here in the West. So I guess we're just shooting the breeze. What do you want to talk about? Or any impressions? It's been a little while for Amy, and considering some of the stuff we've talked about, and we've talked about, I think, merchandise again, or at least bits on anime shopping in Toronto. Or where do we want to start tonight in this conversation? Any ideas?
There's more and more figure stores popping up.
There's more and more card stores popping up too.
Oh yeah, definitely for a card
not
shop.
It's Navito World anymore.
No, it's not just Navito World. That's one of the popular ones here in Toronto, and they have a constant presence at Anime North. Do they have a presence at FanExpo? Or maybe we're going to answer that question in just a bit, Kevin. Well, yeah, we are what, a week after FanExpo, the anniversary of the last Anime Toronto, because Anime Toronto took place on the Labor Day weekend, a week after FanExpo last year, and that's where we were last year, some of us anyway. So, as I said, where do we want to start tonight, or do we start at FanExpo? Because who went? Did any of us go to FanExpo this year? Like, you guys know, I've had history there in the past, but that was for probably a good chunk of the present anime fans a lifetime ago, literally a lifetime ago.
Not literally.
Depends on how old those fans are. It's a young demographic, Kevin. We're James and I are especially on the older side of that.
No, considering I have students who, they're reading Naruto, and I realized I was reading Naruto before they were born, I think it's very much possible it's beyond their lifetime.
Yeah, past a lifetime ago. Who did go?
In a surprising twist of fate, I did go for Sunday.
Oh, you went on the final day.
Yes. I only went because my sister wanted to take her kids to FanExpo. Because a lot of like popular vendors do exhibit there. So for example, Lego is there. Indigo is there.
Oh, I saw the Indigo ads. Yes.
Squishables is there.
Jog my memory, please.
Like they make those Squishmallow figures.
Okay, I think I've seen.
I don't know if
I think
that's. I think they're just called Squishmallows. Yeah, Squishmallows.
Yeah, they are.
Company was there.
So most of them are like random cute animals. So like your ambystoma, so salamanders or like whales, otters, I'm guessing, and bears. But like they do a lot of branded ones. At least Pokemon and Sonic are the main ones I've seen.
Yes, indeed.
Hmm.
And they gave out some free stuff too.
Isn't that usually how
part of the
FanExpo usually works?
Yeah. Well, for those things at least.
Hmm.
So I tagged along through a family pass. That's why.
Okay, so you were the husband.
The air quotes husband, yes.
Yes.
Well, it's not as if I'm not family, but I'm just not the kid's father. But
Yes. Fair enough.
but
But that's how you got there, huh?
I only went for maybe 3 hours actually. Just maybe 2:00, 2:30. Give or take.
So
Maybe
really
even.
near the end.
Like I definitely like only went for the last 3 hours or so. I think it was maybe even only 2 hours.
Mm.
So I didn't deal with a lot of the crowding issues that happened again this Saturday.
Or probably for a good chunk of the weekend, yes.
Did you drive?
I did, yeah.
Ooh, how's parking?
We have a path.
Special parking?
Yes. Granted, I know where the free parking is on a Sunday, even if I didn't have the pass, I know where the free parking is.
Good
But
for you. I know you live to find it.
I don't live to find it. It's just if I happen to see them, I take notes so that if I ever need to use it, it's there.
For the back something for the back pocket, right?
Mm-hmm.
Way to go.
And the thing though is that if you have a pass, and I don't mean the FanExpo pass, if you have certain parking permits, then you can park in more spots. And I do have someone in the family that qualified to have that pass, so that's why parking was not really an issue for me this time around.
Good for you.
But the event itself was pretty typical because Anime NYC was the same weekend in New York City.
And we'll bring bits of that up too.
That's why Crunchyroll is not here this time, is what I suspect.
Yeah,
that's what we had said when we heard the announcement that they were moving from November to the same weekend as FanExpo, and it was kind of like, well, FanExpo had Crunchyroll. It looked like they were going to do the big push to have anime even more in the schedule and that, but it looks like that took a back burner because everyone's like, we're just going to go to New York City.
Much to the dismay of a friend of mine who would have much rather it stayed in November because of a health condition he has.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think going this year really reinforced the fact that this con is not for me anymore because I don't have a lot of other interest in the other aspects of the con.
The other geekdoms?
Yeah.
The other nerddoms?
So I don't watch a lot of Western TV shows. I don't watch a lot of like Hollywood blockbuster movies. I think the only one I watched this year was Dune Part 2.
You're a fan, though. I know that.
It's because I am now a fan of that world. Yes,
You know, they're doing a double header on the 10th.
I heard. Yeah, but I'm just like, do I really need to see it for the fifth time?
Tickets sold out within an hour, yo. It's not gonna happen.
Hey, you
I've
don't have to worry about it.
I've already seen Dune 1 in IMAX.
No, but like the director's gonna
times
be
at this
there for
point.
like a Q&A, so it's like not a regular screening, right?
Yeah. Oh wait, who was there?
Then he's gonna be there for the Q&A afterwards.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. I didn't
Makes
know
sense
that.
why the
actually.
sellout happened then.
I would have, if I had known that like more well in advance, I maybe would have actually considered then. Because yeah, if Denis Villeneuve is there, then yeah, that's definitely a draw.
Okay. So
yeah, not a lot of anime stuff unless you like to shop, and
that's always been the thing with FanExpo, you know.
and
I guess they
most
had
of
some
the
panels, but not much.
no, almost nothing. Like unless okay, let me rephrase that. If you watch any of the popular anime in English, yes, there is plenty for you because they always do get several prolific voice actors.
And it's just the English side, and I think it was from Spy Family, and I forget what the other one was. Oh, Chainsaw Man, I think was the other.
And I think Mel Flanagan came again this year too. Who's the voice of Naruto in the English dub.
But it's interesting because they wanted to become the San Diego Comic-Con of Canada. They basically have kind of become that, but the only part they're missing is the anime and manga side because San Diego Comic-Con still has a decent selection on the anime and manga side for a number of years and stuff like that. And maybe even on the video game side, I would say too.
If I had known sooner that Kenichi Sonoda was going to San Diego Comic-Con, I probably would have gone to it.
And they had an art book exclusive to that San Diego Comic-Con from Udon, ironically, there too.
Aren't they going to actually put that out on a wider release? I could have sworn that was not exclusive and that it just came out there
It's exclusive as in they have, I think it's hardcover and all this other bells and whistles, and he was there to sign it, but a paperback version will be out later this year, they said. They're hoping October, but they delay things, so it could be later.
I see. I didn't know about that. But in terms of the vendors, at least on the anime and manga side, like a lot of the smaller ones were there, and so, but it definitely leans more towards figures. I admittedly didn't go through the entire dealer's room. I think I went through like most of it, but I may have skipped some here and there towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the big players are not there. So Panda Hobby was there. Navido World was not.
Okay, well, that answers that question.
Some of the other smaller ones that I'm aware of, like Sinnoh Hobby and Argama, did have booths there.
Mm-hmm.
Conspiracy Comics was there, as they always do. Same with the Labyrinth.
Yes.
The Labyrinth kind of has to do these trade shows now because they don't have a physical storefront anymore. But actually, 1 Million Comics was there.
Huh.
Oh, they're still
I haven't
kicking.
heard that name in a while.
Yeah.
Because I actually only found out recently that they're now in Montreal.
Wait, they're in Montreal, so that's interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, I knew they were Toronto based, but that's interesting. They moved to Montreal because it was family run and stuff like that.
Yep, they are actually in Montreal now when I started digging around, because when I looked at the vendors list, I was like, wait, what? 1 Million Comics? Because, they'd be first on the list.
I wonder what they're selling now then.
It's comics. I don't see any anime and manga stuff there.
Well, I'm sure it's cheaper in Montreal than downtown Toronto
Mm-hmm.
Right now.
To some degree, yes.
for a store. So,
But many of the bigger... Oh, yeah? What was that, Amy?
Does the Beguiling do Fan Expo?
They do not.
Okay.
I don't think they've done it for... I can't remember them ever doing it, really, off the top of my head. They might have done it in the aughts, but that's all I can think of.
Yeah, I don't think they've done it since, like, the early 2000s either.
Even
Like,
Harry
I don't know.
Tarantula, I don't think really did FanExpo and stuff like that as well.
I think Cyber City still does. At least they said they were last time.
Cyber City was there. Yeah,
Cyber
was
City
there.
does both. I know. Yeah.
They don't bring their manga though. They only bring their figures and comics, I believe.
Yeah, that's where we are.
But in terms of the other retailers that most of us know of, actually BMV was there too. Actually,
Well,
they did bring a decent amount of their like overstock that they probably bought from like distributors and stuff, like the stuff that gets the red dots or the black dots, so to speak. Like they're basically remaindered books. They brought a lot of those manga there, but and the Great Canadian Comic Bin also did bring both manga and comics. But in terms of bigger retailers in Toronto, so as we already said, the Beguiling did not come. Anime Extreme, I don't believe, was there.
That's a story.
Yep,
Always
that is a story. Yeah, I don't think we'll ever see them there
Yeah.
at this point. Even though, like, probably the people that are tied to why they're not there are probably not there anymore anyway. But Harry T is not there.
Mm-hmm.
Who else?
Was Toys R Us there?
Actually, no. Not that I can recall.
Was it EB Games there? Because remember they used to be in the video game section a long time ago.
They're not actually.
Wrong name though.
Whatever happened to them?
Yeah. Okay.
They didn't. The GameStop was not there, as we call them now.
I guess because remember they did industry stuff in certain areas, so like you'd have Sony and I think Nintendo sometimes would go there, but I'm guessing there wasn't much of that.
No. Disney was there to promote a show, but it was just like a booth.
Okay.
Like it was like a sizable space, but like
Yeah.
it was just more so to promote some TV show or whatever.
Or Disney Plus or something like that, or
that show or movie was going to go on Disney Plus. I don't even remember what it was.
No, that's fine. It's like this is FanExpo, right? It's not what I remember, but I know what it's what it's become and how big it's become, and it's really.
So we talk about how big it's become. So is it more than like? Does it encompass all of the convention center now? So is it like the South and the North building, or just the South building still?
I think it had long taken over the entirety of both buildings. So
yeah, there's actually more vendors in North now as well. So there's technically 2 dealers' rooms, but I think maybe there's not as much difficulty getting a table now because then any overflow will just go into
one
North. Because the North building vendors were basically in front of the autograph signing areas.
Well, hey, that's a start. But
the funny thing is, I actually did think about going for the Friday, but then I was like, do I really want to go and see if Humanity? Because the one thing I noticed there that would have been interesting to sit in on was they had Charles Martinet as a guest this weekend or last weekend, and then you could sit in on a panel with him, and the moderator was Victor Lucas from Electric Playground, and that would have been something to sit in on, I think.
Really? Yeah. That was pretty cool.
I remember the last time I was there, they did something really smart with the retailers that were like adjacent or across from the autograph. So they had a lot of autographable merchandise right there, sort of set up, which I thought was a smart idea. Yeah,
well, you have to be opportunistic. And going back to Victor Lucas, I know Electric Playground, Victor Lucas, they've had a partnership or at least a long association with FanExpo.
Yeah, so, he's had a long history with FanExpo to be there, shoot, you know what I mean, footage and do things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, they've
many years.
They've had collaborations, and that date back to around the time I would have been around there. So
yeah, when he was doing the TV show and all that stuff, and
Mhm.
even though he's now on YouTube now and stuff like that, it's still the same great content and positivity. So
yeah,
Mm.
but there's a name there. That's a name in terms.
But I
of,
just thought that would be an interesting panel. Like I would say, two legends together on stage.
Yeah, it would have been okay. The Mass of Humanity. Okay, what was said about that? Because that's even in my final visits, that was always a talk. So what's known about the crowds this year, aside from it's a crowd?
So that same friend who does not like the fact that Anime NYC has moved to August went Saturday. He only chose to go on the Saturday. Crowds were big. Huge, even.
Huge.
The real question is how long did it take him to get into the building is then the next question, right?
I actually didn't ask them that.
It's always
I'm
into
guessing
the
you had
first
easier time,
building,
right?
and then how long it takes to get from one building to the other.
Especially with the way the tunnel, the walk is designed, because it gets fairly narrow at a point.
Yeah. When you're going over the train tracks, it can get a bit narrow.
Yeah, like kind of this part, like you partly go along the skywalk, the infamous skywalk that connects.
Oh, I miss the days where you could just walk through the entire skywalk and then just get into the con. That way.
Yeah, they seal off that entrance, don't they?
Oh, they sealed it off years and years ago.
Okay. So, but
easily 10 years ago at this point.
Mm-hmm. During FanExpo itself, right? But you can just huh? Or all the way. Yeah, during FanExpo.
Well, it's not they don't seal it off. It's just that the door that connects the skywalk to like the walkway between North and South building, that they close off. Yes, but you can still walk the whole length of the skywalk to go to the Sky Dome.
Yeah, I think that door still, but the door still exists, and sometimes it is open. So,
I was gonna say there, Mike, thinking since we're talking about the skywalk and the connection from the convention center for FanExpo, why don't we head over to Union Station, because I think you were saying Amy had been there, right? And I guess there was something in there. They added a little something of fandom we talked about.
Yeah.
What was it there? They had the advertising for
though?
Crunchyroll last year. I wonder if it was there again this year.
I did want
one more thing.
Yeah,
actually.
Let's finish up the FanExpo thought, and then
I just want to bring up one thought. So, when I first went in, I actually went into an anime Kahoot panel, and I played Kahoot for a while I was finishing some cake I bought, and I was talking to some people there, and it was interesting how these anime fans that are probably several years younger than me at this point did go all 4 days, and they just shopped. They did a lot of shopping, met up with friends, and like probably went to some other panels and stuff. And then I just look at myself thinking, like, man, I'm just like, I can just never do that anymore without more substantial anime content.
Well, it's the thing about being young, I guess, too. Partly.
I think that is part of it, but some people just have more varied interests, or some people really just only want to shop. Whereas, like, I'm not in a position to always shop nowadays, or at least I'm a lot more discerning now.
That's okay.
And it's just like the con is so damn expensive now too. Like, gone are the days when it was $50 for the weekend. Now it's like $180 at least.
I was going to say, was it $50 for the Sunday?
Well, I didn't pay that, but because I was under the family pass, so I was maybe only paying like, I don't know, $20-$30 max.
Good deal.
But like there's not even a lot of like fan panels anymore. Like, they had some maid cafe segments, which is, different. That's good. It's something different, but like there aren't nearly as many of those interactive like game show things that Vlad and the crew at York used to do.
Yeah, and a quick let's preface that a little bit, because this is part of this podcast's past history, or at least the predecessor of this podcast. So the old York University Anime Club had a lot of the programming there at FanExpo and related to when it had more extensive anime programming. And that's what we did. We did the game shows. So,
and we created a game show too.
Yeah,
because
Anime Flash.
Because once the Japanese, once all the Japanese creators and singers and like once the Japanese guests stopped coming, for me the game shows were one of the only reasons why I kept going back to FanExpo.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like, some people might say that's sad, but like I genuinely enjoyed playing or even watching those game shows.
Yeah, and and I was one of the original game show hosts for anime wise at FanExpo. So,
and now there's none of that, and it sucks because even a couple of years ago, there were actually other panelists doing some pretty unique panels. Like I remember one time I looked at the schedule when I chose not to go, and they were talking about like Sakura trees, and I was like, oh well, at least that's something different, right? I'm like, okay, that's something. And they talked about like the season of spring in Japan. I was like, oh, okay, like that's actually educational potentially, but no, none of that this time around.
Yeah, I mean the anime. I wish you know what? There's probably some thoughts I really want to gather about that, but there's a brain I want or two I want to pick on that before I say more. I further my own thoughts and lay out my thoughts.
There's a lot of very similar, unique, interesting panels at Anime North, which you might have heard of. So
no, that's a big part of the story, and that's part of it too. So, but just a lot of thoughts. I mean,
and I still go to Anime North as a result.
Yeah, and that's Toronto. I look. Last year was really interesting with FanExpo, when Crunchyroll had its presence, and probably its most significant bump in anime programming there in some years. And in many respects, it sounds like we're back to where the last 10, 15 years have been in terms of anime programming at FanExpo. So in 2023 just felt like more like an isolated incident. Kevin.
So that means this December, I have to keep my eyes open for when Anime NYC weekend passes are going to go on sale, because I've now all but decided that I'm going to go to that event instead. I'm not going to. Yeah.
Has it been confirmed that it'll be the same weekend next year?
They've already confirmed that it will be the same weekend.
So we'll expect more of the same here in Toronto. The other thing, and just to end the thought on FanExpo tonight.
And my friend will brave the heat. He's deciding, fuck it, he'll brave the heat this time.
Brave man.
Because for him, he can't really be in, he really has it tough when it comes to hot weather. And that was one of the reasons why he decided not to go to Anime NYC. But I think because there was a lot of HoloLive content at Anime NYC this year, that I think he might take the risk next year.
It's a friend I know, right?
Yes.
Yeah, a brave man too. Look, and the other thing I'm about to say is, and talking with my the people I supervise at work, because many of them are younger ages and would be anime fans too. They told me much the same. Yeah, the crowds were just stuck out in many respects. They had trouble getting around because of the crowds, which has been a fact of life at FanExpo for the longest time. Having said all of that, can you name if crowds are an issue and you need bigger space, where? Right?
Nowhere else.
Yeah, this is it. So this is as big as it gets. for better or worse. But there's that's some thoughts on FanExpo. Really not much in the way of thoughts, but because none of us really went.
Just hoping for Anime Revolution to come here next year.
Well, do we have anything more on that?
All I know is that they are trying to see if they can come next year. It's just whether or not they can figure out the logistics.
That'll be interesting. Should that make it here to Toronto? But maybe we'll save that for another time. Now let's go to Union Station. It's interesting. Union Station went over a big renovation over the last decade or so, and it does have a lot more. It feel a lot different than it did before all of that. I guess it starts to become its own version of Grand Central, or dare I say it, Tokyo Station. So a lot more. It's more than just a train station. It's more than.
I just want to say something there, Mike. You say that. But remember, in Union Station, you go down there. I don't think any of those stations have a dentist and a pot dispensary right beside each other.
Well, we have to have some. There has to be something unique and cool. I don't know how cool that is, but there's got to be something unique about the way Union Station is. I mean, doesn't Grand Central have an Apple store or something? And Tokyo Station is pretty extensive in itself. So in those times, in the renovation and the post-renovation, a lot of new retail has popped up inside Union Station itself. A lot more, and a lot more eating options, including not just a food court, but kind of a food hall. So you if you're into the more normal food fare, sure. If you're really a foodie, maybe there's something that you'll find there too.
And I think there's sit-down restaurant options too. A few more of those in there too somehow.
Yeah, including two sushi places, but that's two fast food-ish sushi places, but that's another story altogether. And pop-ups. If you over the summer, over the past number of months since Anime North, we've talked a little bit about shopping options as an anime fan in Toronto. And when we talked about it, we also talked about it as more of a full circle moment. Maybe what we used to do in the 90s, the stuff we looked for in the 90s has kind of come full circle, and it's kind of, that's what we're into again, but maybe in a more refined and let's say expensive way. But on top of all of that, it's also just cultural options, food options. And maybe you'll find a little bit of that down there in Union Station too. When it comes to basic bubble tea, and I just said sushi, and maybe just stuff, things there that would appeal to the fandom.
What was it also? You went there, Kevin, just before the TTC. There's like the coffee place that also has the green tea ice cream, or what was it, the soft serve?
Yeah, there's
that too, kind of.
There's a Japanese coffee shop there. Yeah,
that's right. Percent. What do they call? Or Arabica or something? Percent Arabica.
Yeah, it's Arabica.
Yeah, and then Uncle Tetsu's has had a presence there. So, and then Amy brought up something that caught her attention.
It sure did. So yesterday, I think probably yesterday morning, I was just browsing on Facebook, and a Japanese artificial flower creator, I think Orica Canada, if you find her stuff online, but I follow her on Facebook, and she posted just this surprised sticker, and the background photo and text was Gashopon pop-up in Union Station. So I'm seeing this, these few photos, and I'm instantly excited. I know what I'm going to do the next day already. And because I forget if I had mentioned this on the podcast. I'm sure we have, our listeners have turned over by this point. But on
Both of them, yes.
they've exchanged to the other two. But when I lived in Japan, my return suitcase was pretty much 70% Gashopon capsule toys, and these are not heavy items. And I may be exaggerating, not by much. And this is with shipping heavier things like books beforehand. So I really like capsule toys. I'm incredibly weak to them because two of my favorite things are obscure animals and weird anime things and video games and stuff. So, and these are pretty much the exact things that Gachapon are, best at. So I instantly am excited. I see, even from her posts, that some of the weird animals are present and accounted for. In particular, I see amphibians of Japan and I think ancient fish. So the ancient fish one was interesting. They exchanged the usual stalwart coelacanth for an oarfish. Anyways, so I go on their social media, mostly Instagram pages, and sure enough, there's been Gachapon US has been in operation for a fair amount of time in the United States. They've been doing pop-ups for a while now. They have about 10,000 followers. And I saw even for the announcement for the Toronto opening, there were people in the comments asking for them to come back to their city in the US. So, I was excited. It seems like they are putting, their good feet forward, I guess. And
It's
yeah,
not best, right?
Yeah, exactly. The confidence seems to be there, at least to some degree. And it seemed like they had teamed up with a store that I was familiar with, at least by name and by me going there, called Spare Time. I had encountered Spare Time probably over a year ago. I remember, or maybe not over a year ago, but about a year ago, around holiday shopping time. There's a UFO catcher crane game center at the basement of Empress Walk in North York. And in the back corner of that UFO catcher establishment was a separate shop called Spare Time, which had a lot of 3D puzzles and a few blind boxes. So the, non-cranking Gachapon, I guess, and a few other eclectic, Ghibli merchandise. So I recognized the store they were partnered with. And I know Spare Time had some convention presence as well. And Spare Time plus this Gachapon was at FanExpo without my knowledge, which I don't think it would have sold a ticket for me, but it would have made it more tempting. So I headed there before opening. It opened at 10. I think I got there at about 10 minutes early because I wasn't sure if there was going to be a lineup. And there was no lineup at 9:50. But as I headed in, they were setting up a barrier. So I later asked the staff person there, and she did mention that yesterday there were lineups, so that's why that was being preemptively opened. She was actually closing up the Spare Time shop because it's all their current retail locations are closed. So she was closing it, and there were so many people at the Gachapon they had to call her in to help. So yeah, I was the first one in. I got a very standardized welcome of welcome to official Bandai Namco Gachapon or Gashopon shop. And the person working there, they explained the system of how it works. You exchange money for tokens because no one in Canada carries change anymore. And they have about 250 machines there. So it is it's a tight store. but fairly efficient. It's not overly crowded. Like, you can fit probably a couple dozen people in there, and as long as everyone was looking at different machines, it wouldn't be too bad. But yeah, probably a 10 or 12 is a better amount to be in there. An excellent variety. I think there were about 6 that were duplicates, so probably about 200 machines. Lots of great variety. There's a couple, or I think 3 total beetles, so the Japanese tradition of loving beetles is alive and well. Some JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fashion, several Kirby. The weirdest one was a dentistry set, so models of dentistry equipment, food products as keychains, Tamagotchi, lots of anime, a few, or one indie game, I think, I don't know how to pronounce it, IB or IB. So yeah, there was a great variety, a fun instructional video about how to enjoy Gashopon, which is set up like an airplane safety video with some great costumes. And yeah, I was very impressed with the shop. Something to note that it is Bandai Namco specific Gashopon, so GASH, so their specific branding, which do provide a lot of variety, but it does mean that you're not going to get every single product.
IP.
Yeah, exactly. One notable glaring exception is I didn't see any Pokemon there. And I know, Bandai Namco has worked with Pokemon, at least with Pokken Tournament, so I don't know if it's bad blood or if Pokemon's Gashopon are just in-house or a different, connection for that particular type of product. But yeah, aside from that, lots of great variety.
And for all you know, it's probably like, while the association is there, how much margin do they get out of it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it just sounds, it sounds cool. And we talk about all these little stores and little pop-ups, little stores, maybe pop-ups within. And just to hear this, like, it just had me thinking about the type of center, the type of center that Union Station has kind of become.
And when you mentioned Tokyo Station, like, it did remind me of Tokyo Station.
You've seen it, right?
I have. And like, especially the underground shopping area there, like, it is somewhat reminiscent, the new Union Station setup, especially that kind of mini mall place where the Gashopon store is. Even like, to some degree, the food, the new food section, which has a Venezuelan restaurant, which I've never seen before, as well as some interesting dessert options, some donuts.
Ali is there, and I know Ali had a presence there. I think they still do.
I think they still do. I think they call it a certain thing for that food district or something like that. Like, it's supposed to be kind of like this foodie type district or whatever, which is more interesting option, so to speak.
Yeah, Sugar Daddy Donuts, which I knew from another location. So, like, it is a very interesting, like, even just visual location. It's a great place for a Gashopon shop. Like, and it would have been even better if Spare Time remained open. Like, there's, I think, a lot of synergy there. And
that shop, sorry, I hate to interrupt. I'm just curious about the location of that shop in Empress Walk. Is Loblaws and Shoppers Drug Mart beside them?
Yep.
Yeah, I know where it is. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, it apparently is closed down. I had been there last. I probably maybe in the early spring, but it was a bit disappointing. Like, I only bought a couple, I think, Christmas gifts from them. The prices, which I'll get to in a minute, were not the best there. But it was still a fun, like, aesthetic store. And yeah, so speaking of prices, as much as I love Gashopon, as much as I think the store is amazing, it is $3 per one token.
Damn.
An
Isn't it
average
like 3
for
tokens or something?
sorry?
Isn't it like 4 tokens a thing?
Yeah, it is, Mo. That is the average price for. There's a few that are just 2, but the average high quality options are indeed 4 tokens. So what is essentially a $4 or $5 capsule toy in Japan explodes to a $12 plus tax capsule toy, which is like it's and as I've written on social media, like I think it is probably fair pricing. As much as it pains me to say it, considering the rent of Union Station, considering they have to pay at least one staff member for the store, and whatever it takes to, localize the machines, because I think most of them have English text, not the individual capsules inside, but at least the inserts in the sort of front bubble of the machines. Plus the marketing materials. I got a snazzy bag for spending over $30, which I also spent more than that. But because one of the things I wanted was this like premium ladybug that like is overly articulated. Like you can pose its individual legs, its wings open. You can add the like individual flight wings as well as the wing caps. Like it's an excellent figure. But like the rhinoceros beetle I got was almost as good aside from the wing articulation, and it was, the $12 one. So yeah, the pricing is unfortunate, just because like I say unfortunate, but it also, in some ways, at least for me, like reduces the gambling aspect of Gashopon, because I was not nearly as tempted to get more than one of each as I was in Japan. Like in Japan, I get 3 or 4 of the same one to try to get an interesting set. At this place, I was happy with whatever I got, similar to the Gacha Crate I used to subscribe to. Although with this, at least you get a choice of which Gachapon you're choosing. So it's a nice combination of randomization and choice, which I do appreciate. The experience does come at a premium, though.
I like to use the word. It's not really me using the word, but it just came to mind. I call it a buzz tax for some reason. Well, I mean, it's a thing, right? Whenever you have these pop-ups of things that people are, kind of pining for, of course, whoever's putting them on would hike the cost of entry for whatever reason. Sometimes it's just for the sake of doing so because they know they can. But sometimes
it's the youngins would call it the hype tax.
Or the promo tax.
Well, the other thing is they had to get.
Here's my old Taku coming out again. But sometimes but I think to your point, Mamie, there is the cost of localization.
Yeah.
To some degree, right? I'm just thinking, the setup, trying to set it up to make it work for this market.
They are very committed to the $3 a token price tag because their signs are pretty permanent. So for the duration of this pop-up, which I would guess will last until after the holidays, I don't know about longer than that, but I could see it for a few months. Yeah.
So let me get this. Let me make sure I understand this. It costs $3, or is it $4 for one token?
$3 for one token.
And it costs, and most prizes require 4 tokens.
Most of them, yes. A few of like the smaller ones, like if you want a Tamagotchi ring, it will only cost you 2 tokens. But if you want a Japanese amphibian or a beetle or a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure suit on a fake stick or a Kirby character with a mirror, that's going to cost you 4 tokens.
And because each Gashopon machine has maybe several to maybe 10 different ones, so you don't even know which one you're going to get.
Correct.
Holy fuck, that's a ripoff.
As like I've looked at like individual Gashopon to be purchased like separate from the machines, and it is not that unusual to charge this much, at least in Canadian pricing. There is a vendor. They were at FanExpo, from what I am told, and they charge about the same, like $15 to $18 for individual, at least for like the animal ones. That are out of the capsule. The advantage there, though, is that you get to choose which one. So you pay about $4 or $5 more, and you get to pick. But it also is whatever they have, in stock.
And you know what? If you know what you're going to get, then that's fine.
Because it takes a little bit of the fun out of it.
Yes, and that's the thing, right? Because I know you're a smart person, and you made the decision to have this experience.
I find nothing wrong with it.
And yes, I just don't like playing these games because I'm the type of person that I want to get what I want. And so for me, like I'm a different type of customer, though, I'll admit. Because I've always been very wary of gambling mechanics in my entertainment.
That's what makes entertainment fun.
Yep. And I recognize that, and I am not that type of person because I would just rather... I'm the type that would rather pay more if I know I'm getting exactly what I want, rather than trying, like, God knows, an hour to get the one that I actually want. Because I don't trust my luck.
So I will say in an ideal world, I don't consider physical Gashopon gambling directly. I think it's gambling adjacent. But the reason why I say in an ideal world is because if they were Japanese prices and, $2 to $4 instead of, 12 to 16.
Yeah, okay, I get it.
Then there is
one token, right?
Yeah,
one token.
Exactly. Like there's a little bit more of an availability and access. Like it's more accessible. Like I remember when I was in Japan, I was able to, like, they had an Earthbound set, which, I had never seen Earthbound merchandise in my life. So I really wanted to get all the kids. And I managed to get all of them, like, relatively quickly. But the fun thing for me was the extras that I got, I knew would make amazing gifts for people back home because they had never seen Earthbound, things as well. And another time I was at a Pokemon Center in Japan, and there was these really cool Pokeball pins. I think I have a Premier ball in my purse right now. And when I was there were people hanging around the Gashopon machines asking people for trade. I kind of wish I had one that I wanted to trade because it was a neat, like, I got approached by a woman asking if I wanted to trade ones of the exact pins I was looking at. So that's why I say, like, in an ideal world, I feel that it doesn't have to be gambling. And that's kind of how I see it as well, is that it is gambling if you are only want one item out of the 10 and you're going to spend $50 until you get that one item, and you hate the fact that you got the 8 things before you got that 9th one that you wanted. If
that would be me in that situation.
But, like, I feel like if you're going to give away the other ones or trade with friends, it can become like a fun social activity. So it's interesting that, like, I feel it's as dangerous as you make it.
Well, for me, I mean, what you just talked about is kind of what kind of reminds me of my conversation with Squirrely earlier this summer, when she just talked about about the way our merchandise hunting is now is kind of become a bit of a community again. So
And you know what? I see, like, when people accumulate these things, you know where they go? They go to Nomanoichi, because there are definitely people who sell at Nomanoichi a lot of these extra Gashopon and, like, all their extra Ichiban Kuji stuff, because some people, I think, have even made a business out of it too, where they just get all this stuff from Japan and then they'll try and sell it off here because they got the ones that they needed.
fair enough. Some
It's
people-
Interesting.
Like,
Interesting for sure.
When you
And
mention
since-
like the searching and like the fact that like the merchandise has become a community again, like Jack Specific has fairly cool Sonic figures right now, and there's one in particular I've been looking for, and I'm like, did it even come out in Canada? And I had to look on Reddit, and someone else is like, oh, is Chaos Zero in Canada? And apparently it showed up 3 months ago and then disappeared. So I'm disappointed, but it is interesting that, as you mentioned, it's become communal again. And like, I think it would be amazing if the Gashopon store, if it does stick around for a few months, if they organize like trading days, like, just set up a few tables outside the store, or,
in that hallway, yeah.
yeah, you don't have to even, set up tables, like just standing near the store, it'll attract crowds, and like have a specific trading day. And I think it would go pretty far. I know that, speaking of underground nerd shops, Banana Games, which is a Pokemon and expanding to other anime card game store, just, I think, north of the Eaton Center, I think.
They're in the Aura building, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're on, I believe it's Gerard and Young in the Aura building.
Yeah, if you know where downtown IKEA is, it's in that same building. But they have trading days, and they've become like even though they're very obviously a retail store, like they are selling cards, they are they have walls of plushies, other types of products. They're expanding, into whatever that crossover anime card game is in One Piece.
Schwartz, I believe.
I think it's a new one. I could
another
be
new
wrong.
one?
But like this is, it's explicitly a store, but they do community events. Like they obviously have like the official Pokemon League stuff, but they've teamed up with Toronto Gamers, GAYMERS, to do like Pokemon trading and playing events. And, Toronto Gamers will say, please support them, buy a pack of cards, buy a plushie. But like, you're under no obligation. Like I've gone in there and just chatted before. And then there's, I think, Fuwa Time, which is their sister store, is still in operation. If not, it has some sort of presence. But yeah, it's fun to see that there's more variety now, because I'm not a fan of the famous one that has already been mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And which I have mentioned in this podcast many times, not being a fan of.
Yes.
The one with the X in the name. Anime Extreme. I don't like Anime Extreme.
Oh,
Yeah. No, well, they're one of the originals. Kiki Y back in the day, where it was one of those stores, and then it kind of dwindled down a little bit to just Extreme, then Navito World, and then the fire started again.
Yeah, because there's like another figure store on Bloor West in Koreatown that I hadn't heard of until like a few weeks ago, and then
even things like Tsukoshi Mart, right? Like they have Blind Box, Treehouse. Is it Treehouse Toys at Eaton Center?
Treehouse Toys in. I'm just trying to Treehouse Toys in Fairview Mall too.
Yeah, like I think it's Korean
on
products, but like, they have stuff too. Like you can find these, like especially like the blind box figures, like less so Gashopon. Although I did hear Panda Hobbies has a few of them, and a few of the Crane game stores also kind of have a few. But like a lot of these products are like sneaking into the Toronto area, which is fun.
And there's also another store called Hobbiesville that opened up at Ossington and Queen as well.
Yeah, it gets fun.
They sell like cards, and they're mostly a card shop, but they also sell like Gundam model kits, and they do have some manga, and they do have some puzzles and other figures and all that.
And think about how much merch like ANC Games has, right? Like,
yep.
And it's not quite the percentage that GameStop has switched to, but GameStop has Japanese. Like, you can get like Nendroids and statues at GameStop now, like more than video games.
Yeah,
a lot of it is.
You get manga there too.
Yep. A lot of the figures are pre-ordered though, if you want the nice stuff. But
HFE is back in Toys R Us.
They
have manga.
There's pivots all the way around, and I maybe that's another talk for another discussion for another day.
In terms of the trading, though, Amy, I know Spare Time has done that before at their North location before it closed. Like I knew they did like Sunny Angel trading days, for example.
This would be perfect. Like I really hope I'm not sure if maybe Bandai Namco has restrictions about that, but I think it would be I would go. Like that sounds great.
But yeah, there's, as I said, maybe what I've learned is a lot of fandom does have its on. Like I said, I envy a lot of the younger fandom now, because if not, envy, respect for sure. There is an entrepreneurial bug that exists within a lot of fandom. Our fandom these days, especially in the younger demographic of our fandom.
It just makes you wonder how sustainable this is, though, because there's
I guess
the old store at Pacific Mall lasted a few years, because there was like a very small Gashopon store in Pacific Mall, and it had older products. But I think it lasted probably 4 or 5 years, at least. Like I don't know how long it was there before I got there. I don't think this one, because I think they are pop-up stores. They like to move to different cities. So I don't know how sustainable Toronto is, but I think it'll be at least a few months.
Well, so
it's interesting too, because there's also like a number of different of these figure stores that are in like Scarborough and Markham and Richmond Hill, and they're mostly catering to the Chinese community because they may not necessarily advertise in English too. Like for example, like X2 Akihabara, they have like 2 or 3 stores around, like one in North York and there's one in Markham, but you don't really hear about them because like they don't advertise in English.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of them.
Yeah, because one of them is in the Emerald Building near Shepherd and Young.
Yes,
that's what we call it in our community.
Now there you go. We could just go on and on and on about this, right? But here, all you need to know, if you're anyone else listening out there, this is sometimes how being in Toronto can be, and I hope your communities wherever you are listening to this have something similar. But there's that there's that discovery mentality now within Toronto.
It's funny. It's funny when James mentioned the arcade that used to be in Union Station. Like I remember just stumbling across it one time, and it had a Dance Maniacs, which is a really obscure Bemani like DDR-ish like dancing game that used like the hands and like hover mechanics. And it was like so magical to me to like stumble across that. And even though I knew that the Gashopon store was there, I had, a similar kind of feeling. And I was at the CNE, and they had a DDR machine there. And
I was about to ask about the CNE, since that ends tomorrow. And yes, I think a regular contributor to the Facebook page, who I talk with, he mentioned that one of the retro gaming booths is having a duck hunt contest, and that the winner of that will get a free ticket. There's a free pass to AN 2025 at stake here.
Oh, so, cool.
I think it's the same one that comes to AN every year and stuff like that. So they
Mhm.
get around.
Wait,
Yeah, they
what
do
store
get
is
around.
this? Because I need to let my friend know. Because I have a friend. Whenever he went to AN, was at the duck hunt constantly at AN.
Yeah, no, this is in CNE at CNE and at a retro and the retro gaming area. Which has me
Oh,
wondering, yeah. Now, I didn't see CNE this year. I won't be able to, but in the past couple of years when I've gone with friends, I've seen stuff there that's catered to the fandom too, to our fandom. So
CNE.
CNE, great place,
Oh,
great place.
not
When it
cheap
happens.
anymore.
Huh?
Not cheap anymore.
Oh, that too.
Well,
Yes.
they got to make up for what 2 or 3 years in inactivity. I
Well,
understand,
and that too. But hey, as I said,
but
it's
man,
Toronto.
it's expensive.
It's Toronto. Okay. So we just talked about the FanExpo and Union Station, especially FanExpo and Anime NYC happening on the same weekend, and that pretty much wraps up the summer convention season for all intents and purposes. But obviously, it's come and gone, and things happened during the conventions. Things were announced. James, first of all, we're going to check if he's still awake.
I'm still around.
Well, okay. I know we are a little bit short, and maybe we can bring parts of this up as we get closer to release dates. What caught your attention? Anything caught your attention industry wise during the during convention season in terms of things that were brought up, or even just
there were some interesting licenses and things like that, and I'm sure there are things
Gunsmith
Kevin
Cats
saw.
is back.
Sorry,
Gunsmith Cats is coming back.
I think we had mentioned that before, but there were a few other ones like at New York Anime NYC. The one manga, I don't know why it caught my attention, but Pet Shop of Horrors is coming back. Seven Seas is going to bring that back, and it's
my
going to be
set is already up on eBay.
Yeah, collector's edition. So I hadn't done the Tokyo Pop edition, but I'll definitely be in for that. It was 10 volumes for the original, so I'm guessing that's what they're doing. So it might be 5 volumes, but I'm intrigued if this does well for Pet Shop of Horrors, if they're going to get the sequel series, Pet Shop of Horrors Tokyo, where basically the count goes to Tokyo. And that one was 12 volumes, but I think Tokyo Pop only published 8.
Oh, it actually went to 12? I just assumed it was 8.
No, they closed down before they could actually finish that series, so it's incomplete for Pet Shop of Horrors, the Tokyo one. So that one, if they can get to it, that'd be nice in that. So I'm definitely going to look at that one. The other one I was looking at was so that was an interesting thing was Crunchyroll. So Crunchyroll in their last solicitation threw out a bombshell that people were like, okay, is this really happening? And it really happened. I'm not sure where they scraped it off of, but Sunrise, we all remember they had a bunch of series they had announced. Some have come out, some haven't come out between Sentai and Funimation. And one of the ones that was never announced was Planetus. And Planetus is finally going to come to the North American market from Crunchyroll somehow in November to Blu-ray. The funny thing, though, is it's not streaming anywhere, so that's an unfortunate thing, but hopefully maybe they can get it out there so more people can see it. But I guess fortunately for Kevin, the good thing is I'm keeping my DVDs of Plantis because unlike the UK Anime Limited one that Justin Savakis and Anime OCD had worked on, the one in the UK had all the extras and stuff like that. The 5.1 that was on the Japanese. The only thing they were missing in that release was the extras done by Bandai USA that were with NASA. So they had actually talked to the NASA space debris program and some other things because it tied to the series Plantis because they're garbage men in space.
That was a good above and beyond extra for sure.
But that one, unfortunately, they couldn't clear and stuff like that. So, unfortunately for this Crunchyroll release, it's nice that I want to get in stuff like that, but no extras. The only extras they have are the clean opening and endings, as well the 5.1 Japanese audio, not there as well. So it's like, so it is pretty much as bare bones can get. So
is that on the Region B release in the UK?
No, this is
That
Region A, the one Crunchyroll is going to
I
release.
know, but does the Region B release have the 5.1 Japanese track though?
Yes, it does. They have they have all the extras. So they have the picture dramas. They have the English ADR interviews. They have the Japanese voice actor and staff commentaries. They had everything. The only thing in the UK Blu-ray release they couldn't clear was the NASA interviews, the NASA segments that Bandai USA had done. So basically, and it's only Region B locked for the UK release from Anime Limited. So you'd need a region-free Blu-ray. But
yeah,
the Crunchyroll release, nice to have. I probably do want to support it because you know what I mean. And I'm not sure if the reason they're bringing it out is maybe it was tied with something else. Maybe it was tied with Vinland Saga Season 2.
From the creator of Vinland Saga.
Yeah, maybe that's why it was tied to that, and they decided we're just going to throw it out there. But it's surprising that they haven't said anything for streaming, but I hope they can't put it out there because it'd be nice for people to see it. You know what I mean?
So that announcement actually slipped me. I didn't hear about that until you telling me just now.
He just got blocked. He just got chop blocked on that one, didn't you?
I actually never bought Planetes on DVD and never got around to it.
Okay.
I always wanted to read the manga, also never got around to reading much of it. Hoping to rectify that soon, but
okay.
Yeah, about time. Oh, about time.
Well, that was an interesting one because you hear announcements through different avenues, so it's rare that sign gets to listen and it's like, well, that's a surprise. And it was definitely a surprise.
That's good.
But
then.
it's like it's good on some essences, but bad in other essences. So like if you have the DVDs, do not give them away because it was really feature packed and stuff like that.
You know what was similar? From what I remember, the reason why you would want to keep the Wings of Oniyamas DVD that Manga Entertainment put out was because there was an interview there.
Well, actually, it wasn't an interview. That one was actually a commentary with the whole movie, and that's why I thought that. And then the other one that was important was with Oshi and the Pat Labor OVAs and stuff like that. So those Pat Labor OVAs Central Park they did some commentaries with Oshi and some of the staff, and they were really interesting and inquisitive and stuff like that. And John O'Donnell, who used to run Central Park Media, it was kind of how they did it was they're watching the show, but they also have a plan and they're kind of interviewing and talking about what they're seeing on screen. It was kind of this interesting mix.
Oh, I better check. I think I sold off my DVDs, by the way, at the Nomi. So for a song,
because unfortunately those commentaries didn't make it onto the Made in Japan Blu-rays and stuff like that.
Or the Bandai Visual USA releases.
Nope, they were only on the Bandai Visual never released the OVAs of Pat Labor.
Right.
That was only
those were the first two movies.
Yeah, those were the movies. 1 and 2 were done by manga, and the third one was done by Genion.
Yeah, no one cares about Wasted 13 anyway.
But that's how it goes sometimes. But if you had the DVDs, I'm guessing their price would still be fairly consistent and stuff like that, given how they're releasing. They're just throwing out the Blu-ray, and that sometimes seems to be a similar thread. We've seen that they're releasing more Blu-rays again, but it's still tons of content they have to get through, and some of the Blu-rays, it feels like they're just throwing them out there and stuff like that. So you don't see as many extras, or it doesn't feel like you have the extra care that you kind of see with Discotheque or with what Justin Savakis is now trying to do with Anime Ego and stuff like that, since that's under Media OCD at the moment too.
Time of Eve's coming back.
Yep, they did announce Time of Eve at Otakon. That's coming out in December, and so that'll be nice to have back on the shelves. And then I think Full Moon was the other one they announced, and they hope to get that back out next year.
Yeah.
And apparently no dub beyond episode 28 because that's just lost at this point.
Yeah, like there's debate about whether Blue Water and Calgary finished it. They think they did, but they don't know who to contact, and he did try to reach out to Ocean in Vancouver because obviously they had contacts because they had talked to some of the people over there when they did Cyber 6 for Discotheque and stuff like that, but they haven't heard anything back because maybe someone in Vancouver could connect them with someone in Calgary, or they have something over there.
I think Justin recently said how he did find someone at Blue Water that was fairly certain they did it, but then they just can't find it. Which basically means it's at a dead end at this point. Just no one knows definitively where it would be if it in fact really exists. But because Viz was claiming that they had done it too, or his Viz contacts claimed that they did dub it all. But it's funny because Viz did stream Full Moon at one point, even though they canceled the DVD release. This was years after they canceled that DVD release, and back then they didn't stream the whole dub, because if they did dub all of it, they would have probably just put it all up there, because why wouldn't you if you already did it? So who knows?
Okay.
Yeah, that was interesting to see how it goes. But I know, what was it? Discotheque, I know, had their big thing at Otakon too, and they had a lot of interesting announcements here and there, and some of it's coming out on their new bi-monthly schedule. I think the next one's in September, but two that caught my attention from there. One, which was non-anime and is a weird obscurity from Spike TV, which is MXC, the pasteurization of Takeshi's Castle.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to do an SD Blu-ray release of MXC.
That, yes.
Yeah, two volumes. And it'll be interesting to see how, but supposedly people are excited for it. So
it
isn't Takeshi's Castle. People are like really, so it'll be interesting to see how that turns out.
Oh, you know it's also coming back? Robo Geisha.
Yeah, no, you know what was funny when I heard Robo Geisha? I forgot Funimation was the one who got that one. They got it before John from Media Blasters could get, because he had done all the other ones.
Yeah.
Before.
Well, there's a bunch.
But yeah, no, the MXC one, I'll be interested to see how that does. But some episodes they couldn't get because of licensing. I think that one of them might have been an Ultraman one that they kind of spliced up, but I guess they left enough Ultraman in there that they couldn't bring it over. So that would make me intrigued to see how they kind of played that, because they just said, okay, here's this stuff and we're just going to throw words out there, right?
Yeah.
And then the last one that I think was a big surprise given the content, and different people have different opinions on it, but they got for Discotheque, and they're releasing it end of September, Kite. And so they're calling it Kite Integral Version, and they're having 3 versions supposedly of this. They said they have a regular version that just has the violence. They have the adult only uncut version, and then the international cut version. And then I guess the general version is the general US version, but they said there will be a very big warning when you put in the disc, and they'll have a choice. It's like, are you above 18 or something like that? And if you're below where you want something less risque, then it'll send you to a menu where none of the adult stuff is even there. It'll just be the general release. And I think the general release is what Media Blasters did when they did the Blu-ray of Kite. So this is probably the fullest version of Kite out there. And even though it is, like, it's one of those tough ones, because it definitely is supposed to make you feel uncomfortable. It's definitely very adult, but it's also odd when you think about it that it had enough of a pull that it was actually made into a live action movie by Samuel L. Jackson. Even though that didn't do well, it was still made into that. And Media Blasters helped finance the sequel to it too, right? That was a general non-adult release, which was Kite Liberator.
Yeah, the Kite one, Kite was a talk back in the day, and like it sparked a lot of discussion when it first came out in North America. And you think about it these days, and I guess it'll not cause the same debate, but at least the discussion will, maybe the same way I'm looking at it now. when we
Well,
talk about
I guess it's interesting when you say, like, it's not that Discotheque hasn't done things that are controversial. They've done Angel Cop, they've done Violence Jack and stuff like that, and stuff with
Well, that's
violence.
the other
But
thing. I mean,
this one takes it to a whole nother level where you don't think they would put it under the same label, but they're like, you know what? We think this still has value even now, and as cinema, as animation, all this other stuff, and that they're going to put it out. And then there was kind of a hint that they may have another similar kind of release to this, and it makes me think that they have the other anime people know Umetsu for, which was the creator of Kite and stuff like that, which is Mezzoforte. I wouldn't be surprised if they have Mezzoforte as well.
well,
I want Mezzoforte.
And
You're
Mezzoforte has not had a Blu-ray release from Media Blasters or anywhere in North America. Supposedly there's something out there in Japan, but that's about it.
Mezzoforte was a very formative anime for me back in high school.
The only thing I'll say about it is, and you know, it's just kind of cool the way Discotheque does these things, and sometimes it just causes the discussion, and sometimes it's they're uncomfortable, and that's what we're here for sometimes, or most of the time, right?
The other one this year, thinking about uncomfortable ones, is they did do Belladonna of Sadness, but Belladonna of Sadness, I feel, is definitely more artistic. So you definitely could say, okay, I could see them releasing that and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one where Belladonna of Sadness, yeah, it was more adult, yeah, it's more historical, and yeah, it was, they, as they said, they were going for something like the Beatles' Yellow Submarine and stuff like that with some of the animation and stuff like that, but it was definitely some very risque content and stuff like that in a more artistic form.
Good discussion, isn't it? So that's a snap. There's a snapshot of some of the stuff that caught attention at the conventions. Of course, there's plenty of other stuff, but I'm sure that'll come up again in other conversations we'll have as we go. Okay. Okay, I want to at least ask this last thing. I'll change the order a little bit because I want to save the last part, the last part for really at the end. Just before we get to the really serious stuff, TIFF begins this week. The Toronto International Film Festival. Mo, are you going?
Unfortunately, not this year, but it's the 5th to the 15th. Plenty of movies. Some interesting stuff's being shown this year. No major, earth-shattering animes, but a lot of stuff's being shown.
Well, Saturday night has my attention. I think they'll show that. But I want to see if there was anything worth mentioning in terms of TIFF, but maybe later on. But I want to bring that up and before we got to all this. Before we go tonight. Can we talk about Tanaka Atsuko for a moment before we talk about Rachael? Because there were in August there were two noteworthy passings for many of us in our fandom, and they're both they hit hard. They hit hard for much of fandom, but maybe for different reasons. And they certainly, on a personal level, probably a little bit more very different reasons. So let's go from jab to uppercut here, for myself anyway. Tanaka Atsuko passed away on August 20th at the age of 61. She is probably mostly known to most of our fandom as the voice of Motoko Kusanagi in the Ghost in the Shell franchise. So she did play Chun-Li in the Street Fighter Third Strike. She was the lead in Bayonetta. Had various roles throughout the world, throughout time. I'm just looking at some of these, looking at the list here. Chun-Li in Street Fighter. I just mentioned that. Was in Fate's Day. minor roles in Cowboy Bebop, Naruto Shippuden. Oh yeah, it seemed to be Nicole Kidman's Japanese voice. One of the Kikoko Inui or Inui Kikoko would have been one of her. Yeah, well, no, they were close friends. So she was said to have visited her just before she passed away. Undisclosed illness, but had been something that she had been dealing with for a little bit, and died once again on August 20th at the age of 61. That one hit hard, but anything I want to say there, just before I get to the other one, just get to Rachael. So, you're kind of speechless already to start. There's a nice little legacy there already.
Did she do the major in every Ghost in the Shell?
Yeah, or seemingly yes.
Wow,
I can tell. Yeah. Tanaka Hikaru, another voice actor, was her son, but that wasn't known until after she passed away. So, yeah,
she's the Japanese Bayonetta as well.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you're looking the list, right? So yeah, Tanaka Atsuko. So there's that. The one that hits the hardest of all, probably, by far, at least here, Rachael Lillis. We mentioned Rachael Lillis being ill back at Anime North. She had cancer. The cancer had taken a turn for the had taken quite the turn at that point when it was announced that she had been suffering from breast cancer. In May, was in care after the cancer had gotten to her spine and she couldn't walk much. And maybe it just, when you heard that news, you probably wouldn't have been too shocked when you heard she passed away on August 10th at the age of 55, according to reports. And that brought out a lot of memories, right? It felt this feels a lot more final than when Ash's arc ended last year in Pokemon. I know that's not the greatest comparison, but probably not the most appropriate comparison. But it brought out all those feelings of nostalgia among our younger fandom. We grew up with her. Many of our fandom grew up with her, right? Oh, where do I go with this one? Because I mentioned this at Anime North, and I guess and I've mentioned it throughout the history of this podcast, but where do I start with this? I'm at a loss to talk about this one. I did meet Rachael Lillis 25 years ago. I am her first appearance at FanExpo under a different name, but FanExpo in 1999. She came with Lisa Ortiz. This was Lisa's second visit to what's now FanExpo, and they came together. And I'd become friends with Lisa. We hit it off great. I hosted her Q&A back then, and when I knew she was coming back this time with Rachael Lillis, I hit it off with her, and I hung out with much of my FanExpo weekend in 1999 was majorly with them. I hung out with them. I hosted their Q&As, sat in on one of the earliest forms of a voice acting workshop you would see at these conventions. And the memories I have of that was she was just so cool to talk to. Came across as a lot younger than the 55 years that she got to. Okay, let's go backtrack a little bit, because Rachael Lillis was extensively in the Pokemon dub. Played Misty, played Jessie in the early years of the Pokemon English version. If you were to, and I know she loved those roles, but I'm pretty sure if you asked her what role she had really gotten into and she had really fallen in love with, she was also the English voice of Utena. And that is a role she had just come off of dubbing the initial recordings. I think because it was only the first season of that had come out in 1999. And there was no commitment at that point for Central Park to release the rest. It eventually did, but she so badly wanted to continue that role. She had fallen in love with Utena. And what I'd learned about her during that weekend is she was just as much a fan as many of us who came to see her were. I mean, it was funny because during one of those evenings after we had gone out for dinner, and one of my mentors, Wendy, I think it was Wendy Wellington, the founder of the anime club at York University, and she is the founder of and she was the founder of the anime programming at FanExpo. She was the one who brought it. She had a friend. She had a friend who had a ring on. And it was a rose ring. It was the rose ring that you saw depicted in Utena. And that friend showed that to Rachael, and she fanned out. She was so jealous of that ring. She wanted one for herself. She just became a fangirl at that moment. And that's the one moment that sticks out to me of the one time I met her in 1999. We never talked again, but I tried to at least try and send messages to her through Veronica Taylor. There's a photo of me, her, and Lisa Ortiz somewhere in my own personal archives. I made a point to send a copy to her through Veronica Taylor. I don't know if she ever got it to this day. But I thought I'd bring that up. And it broke my heart to really hear what had happened. And this is going to be my big regret now. I joked around about trying to remind myself to donate to that GoFundMe that came out. I never did. I never got around to it. I kept forgetting. And it's becoming a big regret because Rachel's sister closed off the donations at some point. So it was this news hit. This news did hit. It doesn't hit nearly as badly as it does to those who really knew her closest friends, her family. But yeah, this hurts. This really hurt to hear about this. To hear her decline and hear of her passing. As a fan, Amy, I just wanted to say thank you. When her death was announced in our chat group, in our texts, you put up a photo of Rachael Lillis and it's Tomoko Kawakami, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, the Japanese voice of Utena, who passed away, I think, back in 2004. I did not know that Rachael and Kawakami-san had met. I did not know that, and it's one of those rare occasions where we see the English and Japanese voice of the same anime character ever meet. The only other time I could recall it happening was at the 2003 Anime North, where the English and Japanese voices of voice of Hiro from Gundam Wing met. Mark Hildreth and Hikaru Midorikawa met at what turned out to be the last Anime North before the move to the Toronto Congress Centre at the Regal Constellation across the 27. So there are very few, I know of very few instances myself of where the English and Japanese voices met. I only knew of one until I saw that photo. And it looked like they got along great. But, yeah, I thought, I just wanted to express that, take a couple minutes to express all of this. The best I could do now is through that GoFundMe, I did send a message to Rachel's sister, and I hope she hears it. I hope she gets a chance to read that. Yeah, she was great. She was really cool to deal with. I know she visited FanExpo again, I think in 2019, and I know that she was a hit again with the fans who came out to see her then. But that went without saying. I'm sorry. Is there anything else you guys want to say before we end it off tonight? Is there anything? I don't know what else to add.
Just
Is there anything
to
you guys want to add?
obviously thank you for sharing that. I think it also makes that photo I shared in the group chat like even more poignant, with you mentioning how much she enjoyed playing Utena. To like see that, meeting the Japanese actor, they were able to get along and have a good time like that. I think speaks very, highly to the character. And, with, the idea of character, you really can tell, some voice actors, and, each person has a different style. Like this isn't meant to, sort of bemoan like the actors who are more private or more professional, seeming. But, I think that in Rachel's health decline and in sharing memories of her life, you could really see the impact she had on especially Veronica Taylor and Eric Stewart. Those two in particular were sharing, really powerful stories, of her. Yeah, and it is, sad, like if, especially, I think, Mo, Kevin, and I's kind of general generation, with Pokemon, and Rachel voicing, two of the principal cast plus Jigglypuff,
and Vulpix.
Yeah. So like, relatively important Pokemon as well. It's a loss. And, if you think about that sort of, the first few seasons main cast, it's, we're left with, I guess, 2 out of 3. It's sad stuff.
Yeah. She gave a damn about the art.
Yeah.
I could sense that in that workshop, and it was filled. I remember that too. But she really was. She really wanted to share her art form with everybody during that. Her and Lisa. So yeah.
Ashura and Rig Veda as well.
Yeah. We can go on and on about those older roles she had.
Kanako and Genshiken. Oh.
Mm-hmm. James, Mo, anything you guys want to add before we go tonight? So, yeah. I as I said, I really don't have. I just want to at least share them. I hinted at those memories over the years on this podcast, and I guess I just wanted to complete them for you guys as much as I could as we ended off tonight. So, Rachel will certainly be the talk for some time, and it's just sad. It's sad. Cancer just does suck. Really does. But yeah, I want to at least share that before we end it off tonight. So, and yeah, thanks for giving me a couple minutes to lay that out. Okay, but it was nice to just get back behind the microphones, just to start off the month. And you know what? Let's just keep the conversation going, as always, right? So we'll try and do that. Actually, I'm gonna here. Do you want me to tell you just one last thing quickly on the wish list, just to lighten it up before we go tonight? Just to lighten the mood.
Go for it.
Okay. Our old friend Mohamed Abdel Hadi is in town. If you remember early on in version 2, I had him come on the show with Neil. He's in town for much of the week. So Neil and I are planning to kidnap him, and we'll hopefully be able to do an episode again. Have him on the show again, and maybe and then Neil will be able to sit in as well. This is the wildest dream scenario that I'm hoping for. And hopefully that may serve as our quota episode. So let's see what happens and see if we're able to do that. Okay.
I also noticed that you kept talking about this summer con season and completely ignored Pretty Heroes.
I did, yes.
So I take offense to that.
Well, I've been sick again as usual. So, oh boy. Something else you want to mention there, or are we done? I'm
not going to overshadow the Rachael Lillis memorial with talking about Pretty Heroes.
I'm so sorry,
but no,
does that normally happen in the JCCC, or is that elsewhere now?
No, it's JCCC. It used to be the Ontario Science Centre, but it's condemned.
Oops. Yeah. Okay. Good Lord.
I am not going to get into that.
No, and we're already 100 minutes in. Like, let's call it a night, shall we? You know what? Not
after the Rachael Lillis discussion. Not after the Rachael Lillis discussion.
No. Let's just call it a night. It's been a long one already. Okay. I'll keep it simple. At Anime Roundtable, animeroundtable@gmail.com. Contact us there. We'll put away the rest of the spiel. We'll save it for next time, okay? Well, we'll talk soon. Have a good night. And we'll do quota soon. We'll do quota for sure this month, okay? Talk to you later. Have a good night.